So to start with, we'd like to establish our ground rules. And the first ground rule is please mute your microphones and all communications would be done with respect on this platform. And please feel free to introduce yourselves again in the chat box. Thank you so much. So today's webinar agenda is quite straight to the point as usual. So first we will have the introductions of what MAGRIN is about. We'll also introduce how well do you know Africa. We'll introduce our guest speaker, then head to having questions and answer sessions before we get to our closing remarks. So in brief, what is MAGRIN about? MAGRIN is an organization that is poised at empowering Africans with knowledge required to transition into cleaner energy and combat climate change. We've noticed that one thing we lack across Africa is knowledge is power, and understanding and knowing what other countries are doing would help us be able to transition smoothly. Our vision for MAGRIN is to build a community and network of like-minded people and organizations that are willing to work together to combat climate change. Through our work of trying to enable everyone get the knowledge is where we started the African Energy Series, webinar series. We are here to significantly bridge the knowledge gap amongst African youths and corporations to be able to fight climate change and achieve our net zero targets. So across countries, so far we've been able, today we're heading to our 17th country, which is an amazing part for us because we started this at the beginning of the year and we've been able to get up till now, which is something amazing, and we're happy and we celebrate our 17th country today. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the three beautiful faces behind MAGRIN. The first person here is Mary Dora Kamara, who is our programs coordinator. We also have Suleiman Aisha Abba, who is our communications and partnership coordinator, and myself, Georgette Udo, who is the technical coordinator. I'd like to head to our favorite part of the session just before the speaker speaks, which is to get how best you know Africa. I'll drop the link in the chat box and please feel free to scan this QR code so we can proceed. I hope you've been able to scan the QR code because I'd like to just share my screen on what we'll be doing. So please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see my screen. Hello, can anyone hear me or see my screen?
Hello, okay. I can hear you.
Thank you so much. So now for our first question. I'm sorry, I think there's a technical glitch. I will just quickly try again. Can anyone see the questions?
Not really, it keeps reloading.
Yeah. Okay, so let me stop sharing and see what the problem is. Okay, if it's not showing, I think we can just go ahead and maybe do it orally. I hope we don't mind that. Because I'm having difficulty. I don't know what the issue is because normally we display the question. So the first question for today, I think we can just put it in the chat so we get to know the answers from each other. I like it that it's a small community. So what part of Africa is Kenya? Is it in the north? Is it in the south? Is it in the east? Or is it in the west? Fastest fingers. I think the winner will get a trip free to Kenya.
Am I really allowed to answer since I'm from Kenya? That sounds like cheating?
Okay, then you're exempted from this. So
Yeah.
yes, okay, I can see Aisha has responded, which is East. Yes, East is the correct answer. Then the next question is, what is Kenya's Lake Nakuru National Park famous for? Is it famous for the animal flamingo, lion, giraffe, or Simba? Don't worry, your ticket will be given as soon as you complete all the answers. I can see we've gotten the first one correct. So the famous Lake Nakuru National Park in Kenya, what is it famous for? Which animal is the most famous there? Is it the flamingos? Is it lion? Is it the giraffe? Okay. I see everybody's now. No time to Google. We're just supposed to, it's just the fun part where we get to learn about this country. We're talking about giraffe. You were close, but that's not the answer. The answer is flamingo. Then the third question is, how many countries border Kenya? Is it 4 countries? Is it 5 countries? Or is it 3 countries? I smell some cheating here. Yes, 5 countries border Kenya. These countries include South Sudan, Ethiopia, Somali, Tanzania, and Uganda. And our final question for today is, what is the official language in Kenya? Is it English? Is it French? Is it Swahili? What do you think the answer is? Okay, so the clue is, I can give one of the answers, which is, no, maybe you got the first one correct. It's 5 countries that border Kenya, and I mentioned them. So finally, for the last.
I meant language too, Swahili.
Oh, okay, Swahili. Okay, then. Thank you so much for everyone participating. And now I will go ahead to introduce our guest speaker, and from there we'll proceed. So our guest speaker for today is Cynthia Nekesa. Cynthia Nekesa is a young, ambitious leader. She's with passion for entrepreneurship and social impact plus technology. Her expertise include robotics, computer networking, and technical support. She's currently pursuing an honors degree in software engineering and envisions merging technology expertise and education with climate change to be able to empower women and also drive a positive change. One of the things that stood out for me about Cynthia is the fact that she's breaking barriers by having a career in STEM and also trying to mix this with climate change and sustainability to be able to make a change, especially for women. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for accepting this honor to share your knowledge with us, and we look forward to learning so much from you. Over to you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I'm feeling jiggly actually. And then I just had like a small presentation that I'm going to share. Yeah, to just make it visual. Yeah, and so just let me get into it. You have to enable me to screen share. Can you
Yes,
hear
I've
me?
enabled it. Yes, I can hear you. Please, could you try sharing your screen again?
Okay, right now it's okay.
All right, thank you.
Confirm. Can you all see my screen? It's kind of having a weird look on my end, but yeah, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but not in presentation mode or slideshow.
Okay, like that.
Yes, now it's good. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And just to add on what you said, being a STEM girly and getting into the energy space has been quite has been quite interesting because, sometimes, and also like, just trying to create a venture in the clean cooking space has been quite hard, because sometimes you go to pitch and they're like, you have a STEM background, what do you know about energy? But I'm like, I'm passionate about this problem and I've been doing my research and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just happy that I'm able to break barriers and, just, get into an industry that is not like the traditional systemic whatever background, but I can be able to thrive in it. And I just, I just love that. And I love that you gave me this opportunity to come share the knowledge I have. And I would just like this to be as interactive as possible, so that maybe we can all get the best out of it. And so I'll just get right into it. Today, I'm going to talk about climate change in Kenya. Basically, we're just going to look at the effects, actions, and future. And in the climate action part of this presentation, we are going to focus on energy specifically, because that's what the MAG Africa Green Series is all about. But we'll also touch other stuff. But yeah, that's the main goal of today. And yeah, stay tuned and hope you all enjoy this. Yeah, forgive my voice, I have a cold. Yeah. So yeah, introduction. So since I saw you already had a Slido and had prepared a Slido, so there's no need of it. So I'll just like to ask the participants to just tell me what comes to your mind when you hear about the word climate change, just what the one word only, that comes to your mind when you hear about climate change. Is everyone there? I can see one, weather change, extreme. Ooh. Okay, so I started with energy, or what do we call it? I've seen weather change, I've seen extreme. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah. So it's just interesting how, climate change has affected every aspect of our life basically. And all we see are just the effects. We see a lot is happening basically, and it's not what it was 10 years ago. And this just makes it justifies the importance of having these discussions, so that we can just share this knowledge and even like get this knowledge, and also just try to see whether we can even like replicate these things that are happening in other countries. And we see where we have gone wrong and what we can do to correct, so that we can be on the right path to the climate energy transition, especially in the African continent. So I just after we have already understood the basic knowledge about climate change, I just want to highlight that the sectors that cause the most pollution, especially in Kenya, the first one is energy, which totals to like 51% of the total emission. So you can imagine how big that emission is. And then we go to agriculture, we look at fashion, we look at food, we look at transport, and all the other sectors that are lined up. So you see, these sectors, they contribute to the climate change. And also you find, like, for example, even agriculture contributes to climate change, but also it's affected by climate change in many ways. So it's just a very paradoxical relationship, and it's very complex, but we are trying to solve it individually, governmentally, organizationally, and we're just proud of ourselves for the progress we have made. So I'll just get into looking at the effects of I don't know, my network, my slides are not moving. Yeah, but I just wanted to talk about the effects of climate change in Kenya. So one of the effects of climate change that is very evident in Kenya is its effect on agriculture, because we have had like a lot of effects in agriculture, in that, imagine like 20% reduction in like maize, which is like our staple food. And you see, when there's a reduction in production, we also get a reduction in food production. We also get a reduction in the nutritional value in children, and this also causes health effects. So you see how these things are just so complex and so connected and stuff like that. So, and also climate change has also affected our health sector. We have seen a rise in vector-borne diseases. We have seen a rise in waterborne diseases, especially during floods, and during droughts. You find a lot of malnutrition. And then the other part where climate change has caused, I know, is it okay for me to talk while you guys are not seeing? Let me try to fix. Okay. Still not working. Can you guys see my screen moving? I don't know why it's not.
We're still seeing the first slide.
Yeah. This is crazy. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Okay. Sorry for that, guys. Yeah, and so I was saying, we have seen a lot of effects on climate change, especially in the agricultural space. And also we have seen it impacting our health sector, but you can see here statistics like 26% of children under 5 years in Kenya were stunted in 2020 due to food shortages. So these are just some of the very huge effects. And then we also have a lot of effect on water sources, especially it causes a lot of drought, then we don't have water access. And even like in the rural places when the rainfall is low, water disappears, and then they have to like walk a lot of miles to find water. And even you find in the urban areas also when there's like those high heat times, you find that there's water rationing sometimes, which is quite difficult. And yeah, there's just a lot of drought, especially in the northeastern part of Kenya. There was a time in 2017 that 2.7 million people died just because of like drought and lack of access to water and also food. And also, you have seen climate affecting our the biodiversity. For example, the Mara River, which is known for the wild beast migration, has seen a reduced flow. Hence, the wild beasts don't travel anymore, and so we miss this phenomenon. And then another instance of biodiversity loss is where we find like our wildlife are moving out of the parks because they don't have food to eat, and this causes a lot of conflict with animals, especially in the Maasai community, and it just causes a lot of killing and stuff like that. Wildlife reduces, there's conflict, and it's just so messy. And also climate change has caused our coral reefs to be affected because it causes a rise in sea temperatures and ocean acidification. Give me 1 minute. Oh, sorry for that, guys, again. And continuing on that, we have had economical impacts on our GDP, where we have seen that if we don't like act on these climate issues, we are going to like lose our GDP by 2.6%. And I'll just talk about livestock loss in the other slide because it's something so huge. And then it has also caused human displacement, where we have had people losing their places, especially floods. Floods and droughts, they cause a lot of human migration, which is climate migration, and it's also a big issue in Kenya. Another problem that we have seen, why are my slides like this today? Okay. I think I'm just having weird technical issues today. Okay, I would like to highlight like two major experiences that have caused a lot of loss like I've witnessed myself, and they've really made me rethink about climate change and stuff like that. Especially one of them is the 2020 to 2022 droughts that caused a lot of livestock to die. Imagine like farmers in Kajiado lost almost 1 million animals, and some of them had to sell animals from cash as low as 5,000. And you can see like that is really a big loss just because of drought. Like the drought was so intense, they had to even depend on food aid because they couldn't grow crops. Their animals were dead. And another major one is this 24 floods, like just this May, like the previous month, those like floods in Kenya and East Africa that caused a lot of displacement. A lot of people went missing. A lot was happening. And it just highlights how climate change has really affected our way of life. And these are just the statistics from Red Cross. You can see, like in the previous floods, 43 counties were affected. Can you imagine, like 95 people, households were affected, 52,000 people were displaced, and so on and so on. This just highlights how climate change, especially like floods, has had a lot of impacts on the climate migration. And we have talked about the problems. They are scary, they're extreme, but there's hope because we have individual people working towards mitigating climate change. We have the government working towards mitigating climate change. We have youth it's like us who are so energetic in fighting the climate change issues. And it's just so interesting. So in this discussion, I'm just going to highlight the government interventions, especially in the energy space. And I'm just going to highlight how the government has invested in the energy space. Like we have a lot of, Kenya is so blessed with geothermal energy, and this is what we are harnessing currently. So we are using geothermal. Kenya has also invested in wind energy, and there's also a big investment in solar energy. And so this just helps us to be more electrified, because we rarely have blackouts. The only thing is the electricity nowadays is expensive, and it's because I think of taxes and bureaucracies, but we really have like the capacity to produce electricity, and we are like proud of that. We're also proud that the government has taken initiative to invest in such projects that help us to have electricity supply. And just one thing, you see, when you're talking about climate action and the energy space, we normally forget about the clean cooking sector. And you have just seen the clean cooking sector. The government has also helped because they established a clean cooking association. It's called the Clean Cooking Association of Kenya. They're trying to create policies that will unify us, especially in the climate space. They're trying to see how they can make clean cooking affordable and accessible to everyone. And so that is also a major step that I've not highlighted. And just apart from government efforts, we also have like individuals and organizations that are making great impact in the continent, in Kenya and also in the continent. For example, I see this company that is called Sanking. They are producing, like they have helped electrify rural areas. Like when I go to my rural area, it's not the rural area that was like 6 years ago. It's so much different. People have solar panels, people have this small solar lamps that they can use for businesses. And it's just interesting how much progress you're making. And there's also this company that is called Systema Bio that is in Kenya that is offering biogas solutions, and it's just helping also in the clean cooking space. Again, in the clean cooking space, we have a lot of innovations in Kenya. There's this company called EcoSurfing that is producing briquettes from sugarcane. And there's also this company that's called Jiko Fuel that they're using steam to produce clean cooking for schools. There's also a company called Coco Networks that they're using biofuels. And for them, they have really benefited from carbon credits, though it's a controversial topic. But yeah, and also we have had like companies like Mtaka, which have helped us in the waste management. And they're also trying to collect data that will help in creating policies that might help in waste management. And yeah, those are just some of the companies that are doing great. But even on an individual level, I've seen farmers embrace agroforestry. Farmers are embracing climate-smart agriculture. Nowadays, farmers don't burn their agricultural waste. People are using conservative tillage like mulching, and it's just a great progress that I've witnessed like around me. And yeah, it's something to emulate. And so when we look at the energy space and we also look at the climate action space, policies help to guide what we do. Policies help us to stay on the same page. Policies help us to be accountable. And these are just some of the policies that I would like to highlight in case you want to do research on climate change in Kenya. These policies will help you understand where we are going, and what we are all about, especially in the climate action space. I won't go deep into them, but just highlighting them. They're there. And then the one that I would like to mostly touch on is the NDCs. Nowadays every country has nationally determined contributions, and Kenya had updated theirs in 2020. And then we had I saw Care About Climate had also is also trying to collect this data, the NDC, so that they can be unified and they can also present it to them larger stakeholders, and which is also good. And Kenya, we have this ambitious goal of reducing GHG gases by 32% by 2030, which is quite interesting, though I hope we get there, because I've seen we're trying to work, though we are not there, but we are trying our best to work towards these big audacious goals. Another policy I would like to highlight is the forest conservation initiatives. Like our president just recently had initiated the 15 billion trees by 2032. And what I've seen with this campaign is that it has helped people to be more responsible about the environment, it has helped people to be more aware, it has helped people to be accountable, especially while planting trees and cutting trees. And it's just something that has helped us as a country to improve the forest cover. So this just goes a long way to show how leadership, when leaders take responsibility, they can help in this climate action agenda. And so we have looked at the things that are at least being done to mitigate, but we still have gaps, and these gaps are what are causing us to not be where we want to be. And we're just hoping by implementing these gaps, we will be where we want to be. So gap number one is the financial constraints, especially in climate finance has been having a very small funding, and especially even the clean cooking sector, that one has even had no funding was going there, but at least of late there's funding going there. So one of this is the financial constraints. It forces the country not to do their national projects that will maybe help us. So that's a gap, that's a big gap that is there. And also we have lack of expertise in climate finance, carbon markets, and advanced renewable energy technologies. And what I'm seeing this as a youth is an opportunity, especially those people who are good in accounting and finance. They can delve into that field of climate finance, carbon credit, VCMs, and also advanced renewable energy. I saw Aisha does hydrogen, which is something Kenya also, during the Africa Climate Summit, Kenya wants to venture into hydrogen. And you see, having people that are good in are expertise in such sectors, it gives them an upper hand, especially in the green job sector, and just it will put them at a better place because they have expertise in a field that does not have a lot of people. And then you have weak policy enforcement. For example, in Kenya, we banned plastic bags years back, but now you're seeing people still using these colorless small plastic bags. So you wonder what is happening? Why are people still using these small plastic bags? And then you can find another one. There's this policy that they said, if you cut one tree, you plant three. But there was no even responsibility. There was no people didn't even care. They were just cutting. And then there was also this policy that failed. There's this policy that, I don't know, they just keep introducing policies, but these policies go down the drain because they are weak. Maybe they have not even consulted with the people. There's no ownership. There's just a lot of nonsense around weak policy enforcement. And you also have policy gaps, especially, for example, in the waste management space, where we don't have data, we don't have the technology. Can you imagine someone telling you to maintain the environment clean, but there are not even something as simple as bins? Even leave the bins that are segregated. Something as simple as just a bin, it's hard to find on the streets, and you're expected to maintain the clean environment. So these are just the irony that, they need, when they introduce policies, they should also look at such sectors like waste management, and also just caring about vulnerable communities. A lot of people just focus on Nairobi, the capital city, but they forget about the vulnerable people in the arid and semi-arid areas. They also forget about the vulnerable communities in the rural areas, who some are even exposed to these unclean fuels and stuff like that. But I'm just glad that solutions are coming up. There's MTAKA, there's CCAK, and yeah, despite the gaps, they are trying to be filled somehow. And then we also have technology and infrastructure limitation, especially in the renewable energy transition. You find that the national grid is like outdated, and it's just hard for them to like have an energy mix of renewable energy. They will need that like to invest in the infrastructure. And also we have inadequate data. So someone who is in the data space could like take advantage of this gap and create data that would help us to transition, especially in the renewable space. And then you have insufficient warning signs. But some weeks ago, I think 1 month ago, I attended the YFP Innovation Challenge, and I saw there are some startups in Kenya who are trying to solve this early warning system problems, and they're using technology while at it. So I'm very hopeful, despite there being this gap. And we have social and economic barriers. Awareness. We have lack of awareness, especially in underserved communities. You know, even just live underserved communities, just a normal Kenyan, like a normal Kenyan, a Kenyan who is hustling. Most of them are not aware about the climate crisis. Most of them are not aware about renewable energy. Most of them are not aware about a lot of stuff and the climate action space. And so it's our duty as youth to just, you know, demystify this knowledge, get there and teach children and even the people around you about climate education, teach them about renewable energy. Those small things matter the most. And also there is also a big gap between the knowledge, because you know, like the knowledge on climate change is in English, and you find like in Kenya we have a lot of tribes, we have a lot of diversity, cultural diversity, so it becomes hard for this knowledge to trickle down to the local grassroots. But what is interesting is that there are some organizations that are coming up that are trying to, you know, do translations for the climate knowledge, and I'm sure this will help in reducing this knowledge gap, especially in the awareness part. And then, yeah, what are the next steps? You know, we have looked at the effects of climate change. We have looked at the efforts being carried out by the Kenyan government and some of the individuals. We have looked at the sorry for that. We have looked at the gaps, and yeah, so what do we do next? Like, how do we get where we want to be? So some of the things I highlighted, but here I would also like to hear your suggestions. Like, what do you think we need to do apart from this four? One of them is capacity building. Capacity building is so important. People like don't score the importance of this, but it's really important because once you're informed about this stuff, you're better placed to even like advocate, be an activist, or just build a solution around the problems, or even see opportunities in these spaces. And also localized climate awareness. Yeah, just this is a repetition because I already mentioned it. Most of the knowledge is in English, but we also need to like explain these things in our local languages so that someone there can understand and we can also be on the same page. We're also looking at collaboration between individuals, between companies, between organizations, between civil society, between even countries. Because I realize there's some countries that don't even care, like they just continue polluting. And thus we're here working hard, and we are the ones who are mostly affected by this climate change problem. So I think that collaboration would really help so that we're on the same page and we're working towards a better planet, all of us. And also innovative finance. I know carbon credits are a bit controversial, but I've seen companies that are using them to make their products accessible to the local grassroots, especially companies like Coco Network. And a lot of companies nowadays, even the people doing big agroforestry projects or forestry projects for what is it called, reforestation, they are benefiting from innovative finance like carbon credits, but it's a controversial topic again, so I won't really dive into it. And so yeah, I would just like to see, guys, like, what do you think? What do you think? Okay, I'm seeing a question from Aisha, but like, before I answer that, what do you think are some of the next steps that we can take to, to overcome this gap so that we can be where we want to be as Kenya and also as Africa? Because I feel that these problems are kind of inter-country. It's not like Kenya alone. So yeah, just give me your ideas on what you think we can do to fill these gaps that I've identified. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Do you want us to start talking about it here, or this is your last slide for the presentation?
I'm only remaining with this slide. Yeah.
Okay, so then we can go ahead to start talking, because I
Yeah.
like that after stating your problems, you also went ahead to give us some of the solutions that you're looking at and countries looking at in general. So I would like to open the floor. Does anybody have anything to say before I continue? And also there's a question in the chat box. So maybe we will discuss this before we go to the question, or as you please, Cynthia, which would you want to go first?
I think discussing first, like anyone who has like just an idea, and then we can just like, because I've finished, and then we can go into the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So for me, first, like you mentioned, capacity building is very key, because if we lack the expertise, it kind of reminds me of the case of when we had the oil boom, how they would need foreigners to come in and begin to do it, and that would be a problem. And that would be a major problem for us. And second thing I was also thinking of is, you talked about collaboration, which is one of the reasons we are having this webinar series, because when we hear what other countries are doing, we can try to tailor them to our own country and our own needs, which is also really key. And you're working on technology plus climate change, so which is good because you're already a Kenyan and you're going to try to make some technologies that are targeted towards Africa, Kenya specifically, but can also be shared within our continent, which is good. The only extra thing I'll talk about is more of financial aid in terms of grants and all these hackathons that we hear like in tech space, that you end up getting some finances from it. We can also tailor that in terms of solutions for the climate change and energy space to see more tailored made solutions that can help us. And also people receive funds from this because people have beautiful ideas and they are unable to fund it, which is also like a bottleneck for them. So if the government and also financial bodies are able to do this, that would also push for more steps in regarding combating this change that we're facing. Please, does anyone have anything they would like to add? Please feel free to unmute your microphone before we get into the Q&A.
Seeing in the chat, someone said, you mentioned Kenya is planning to venture into hydrogen. I know that West Gas in Kenya is producing HT-based fertilizer for agri uses. What other uses is the new HQ hydrogen plant targeting? So from the studies I've read, I've just seen they're planning to use hydrogen for electrification. So I didn't even know about these hydrogen-based fertilizers in West Gas. But yeah, it's something that it's something I've not read a lot on. But I think Aisha, do you know of any hydrogen stuff in Kenya, since you're like, that is like your area of expertise, or you just know about in your locality?
Hello. For Kenya, none that I can think of for now, but probably they are, because Kenya is also moving towards clean hydrogen, because there was an Africa Climate Summit that was held in Kenya last year, and I think a few weeks after that summit, they released the national hydrogen strategy. So I believe that something should be going on in hydrogen in Kenya.
And is there something going on in Nigeria, just out of curiosity?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
How are you guys like taking advantage of hydrogen?
Okay, so since we in African countries, we have something in common, which is like our natural resource, like the solar. So for Nigeria, we haven't really started in projects, like doing a physical project, but we are still in the research stage, coming out with policy documents and stuff like that. It's still on the level of high-level meetings, just to see how things would uptake from there. And we also have like hydrogen diplomacy office in Nigeria, in conjunction with GIZ, and they've been doing a lot of research and collaboration to see how things can move forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's interesting, but I hear like hydrogen requires a lot of capital, like it's capital intensive.
Of course, all energy projects are capital intensive, and even more for hydrogen because of some of the constraints attached to it, especially in terms of cost and safety that needs to be put into consideration.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, that is it. At least Aisha has added on that. And yeah, so I can try to answer this question. Can you list some of the local or international organizations helping with the translation from English to local languages? So an international organization I know is an international organization I know is Climate Cardinals. They are trying to translate it into a lot of languages, not even like languages like, which languages are these? Languages that are not English, like Spanish, such languages. That is Climate Cardinals. And then in Kenya, there's this a fellow of mine. We did Yali together. He has this organization that is called Ecovision. They are also they are like trying to translate climate knowledge into like local languages, not even Swahili, like local, like grassroots languages. So yeah, it's interesting. Those are the two I know for now. Yeah, but yeah, those are the two I can highlight that I know.
Wow, that's really nice. And please, if you have any other questions or you're just joining, please feel free to put it in the chat box, or you can feel free to unmute your microphone and share your ideas with us. Okay, if there are no further questions, I think one other thing I would like to add, or more of a question, is you talked about capacity building. Is the country currently doing anything with regards to that? Like, do they have like maybe schools? Okay, yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, pardon. Sorry. Continue. Just finish your question.
Yeah, I wanted to just find out what the country currently has in terms of schools or maybe institutes regarding building people's capacity in climate change and energy sector.
Okay, so I will start with the children. So the children, we have this curriculum that is called competency-based curriculum. So it's called CBC. So this curriculum, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the children more hands-on. So what I've seen in the environmental studies is that they're making children to do like cleanups. They are making them to grow trees, so they want them to grow with that knowledge. So I can say that CBC, especially in the environmental studies, they are trying to implement some of the aspects of climate action, but the Ministry of Education is still trying to discuss on implementing climate curricula in schools, like even in preschool, primary schools, secondary schools, and also universities. But like since like some individuals don't wait for the government, there are some organizations that are doing capacity building, like let's say they are going to schools and doing climate education in terms of clubs. They're creating clubs, or some of them just go there, teach children. Some of them do it as mentorship one-offs. Some of them go to the local communities and just talk to them. So people are doing most of that work at individual level. And what I can see, individuals that have done like a lot of work in capacity building is this organization that is called Jacob's Ladder Africa. So they focus on energy transition and also green jobs. So for them, there's this time they even partnered with the government to create a national workshop for all the youths in Kenya, where they were teaching on green jobs and green job skilling in Kenya and Africa. And yeah, so those are some of the capacity building initiatives I've seen. Yeah. But yeah, the curriculum is not yet really established, but I've seen the education system was trying to partner with UNESCO under the program Greening the Education Sector. And I saw even like UNESCO already has a curriculum, so they are trying to like partner and see if they will implement it in schools. But I've just seen people like doing whatever they can do in their own capacity, either organization, individuals, and also big organization partnering with the government. And yeah.
Thank you so much. That has given me a different perspective now, and that's really good, especially for the younger children. Learning at an early stage would also help them to understand what is going on in the environment, seeing people migrating and things that are going on, especially currently as Kenya is facing lots of changes that are quite drastic and changing a whole lot. Thank you so much for having you. And if no other further questions, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for joining. And thank you so much, especially to our speaker, Cynthia, because you've shared several insights about Kenya. Even, I don't know if you want, you could also share your slides with us, because there are several links that I find would be very meaningful. And even the name droppings you gave, I would also look at them in case there'll be an opportunity for maybe partnerships, or even if we could also do the same in our countries too. But we're really grateful to have had you, and we are thankful to everyone who took out time from their day to join us in this knowledge sharing opportunity. It's something we're really grateful for, and thank you so much for joining. One further thing is, please feel free to join us on our social media platforms, as we'll be sharing. We'll have more and more of the seminars coming up at different times, especially every Saturday at 1 p.m. GMT. We always have a seminar or webinar, as we will call it, about different countries. We are on 17 plus countries, and we have a lot more countries to go through. And the knowledge is getting better and better by the second. So please feel free to follow us on our social media platforms at Magreen on Twitter, formerly called Twitter, now X, on Instagram. And yes, if you know anyone from any other country that you think should be part of this, please feel free to send us an email or write to us on our socials, and we'll be happy to have them on here. So on behalf of Magreen, thank you once again, and see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you too for the opportunity. And thank you everyone for listening to me and contributing and being a good audience. I really appreciate it.